Hey, all you podcast listeners, you can find Slice of the Paranormal everywhere podcasts are found, or you can watch us on our YouTube channel.
Hello there, and welcome to Slice of the Paranormal.
Slice of the Paranormal.
Pew, pew, pew. This is the podcast where we talk about paranormal stuff, unsolved mysteries and histories, and all kinds of stuff.
Witches, warlocks, ghosts.
Goblins, werewolves, vampires.
And today, we have a really special guest. Our guest today has an eclectic background. He has a master's degree in communications from Bloomsburg University, a bachelor's degree in psychology from Aquinas College, and he is a researcher in drug trends, rock and roll journalism, and an author of several paranormal books.
That's right.
So,
but before we get to that, we do have to mention we do review pizza also at the end of the episode.
That's right. We do. And thanks to Cup of Code for one of our sponsors who makes this all happen for everybody.
Absolutely.
So in 2016, what clued me into our guest is a book called Sheppton, The Myth, The Miracle, and the Music. And I'd like to introduce to everyone Maxim Furek, the author of this book. And I'd like to welcome you to the podcast, Maxim.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Stephen, Ryan, and Christy. And this is a great setup that you have there. I just love the optics. It's it's better than Schwenguli's setup. So.
Nice.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much. There you go. Thanks to our producer. They do a great job.
It's awesome. Yeah, I like it. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks so much for being here today.
Yeah, I appreciate the invitation.
Now, Sheppton Mine Disaster, that was one of the first things we did, right? That's one of our earlier episodes.
We did do an episode on the Sheppton Mine Disaster. So, Maxim, you start out writing books on, drug trends and the rock and roll industry. What had you switch gears into the paranormal with the Sheppton Myth, Miracle, and the Music book?
Yeah, it was, this paranormal venture was pretty much a fluke. It was like the paranormal crept up on me and smacked me over the head.
It was uninvited.
Uninvited. I did not go looking for it, but I'm a rock journalist. And what I was doing was this, Stephen. I was the highest charting song of any rock band in northeastern Pennsylvania happened in 1971. It was the song Timothy by a group from Wilkes-Barre called the Boys. Timothy was about cannibalism in a mine shaft. So what I was doing, I was writing a book, a rock biography, about the connection between the song Timothy and the Sheppton Mine Disaster of 1963. And Sheppton, of course, there were three, just like in the song Timothy, three guys were trapped in a mine in Sheppton. They were there for 2 weeks. Only two were rescued. And after they came out, and this was a wonderful story of human survival. It was great. And it was one of the top stories of 1963. But when those two guys were rescued, their neighbors wanted to know what happened to the third miner. What happened to your mate?
Yep.
And back then, as now, there were allegations, still are, of cannibalism. They're unfounded, they're unsubstantiated, but still there's rumors, and even the missing miner's son believes that there's a possibility that they ate my dad. So
really?
Oh, really? Even he said so.
Wow.
Even he said that. Yeah,
even despite evidence, despite any remains being found, any bones.
None of that.
Maxim, can you correct me if I'm wrong? This started when they were actually still doing the rescue mission. After they got the two guys up, did they not send someone back down the shaft to make sure that the third guy wasn't there?
Yeah, they did. What they did, there was a guy, Andy Trebinko, I believe he was the president of the Independent Miners Association.
Okay.
And what they did was they called him, get this, Commander X.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
They snuck him to the site. he was in a truck with a tarp, and he snuck in there because they didn't want his wife to know that he was going down there. He volunteered to go down there. So he went down the shaft, looked around, and there was nothing there. What there was a shovel with a helmet on the top. And so that sort of looked like it might have been a person when they stuck the camera down there. Okay. But there was nothing there. No bones, no blood, nothing that would indicate that, that the remains of Louis Bova were there. So he did check it out. Andy Trebinko, I believe his name was. And but there was nothing there. So it was interesting because typically, as you know, in the coal region, when somebody died in a coal mine, it was rare that they would go down and do a rescue operation.
Correct.
They typically would go and bulldoze the place and put a shrine there, and the Catholic priest would do the last rites of absolution. And the reason for this is twofold. One, it was too expensive to go back down and, look for the body or the person. And also it was too dangerous.
Risky, yeah.
So in Sheppton, it was only because of one of the members of the family petitioned the mining association to go down there and make an attempt to rescue these guys. And the family believed that they were still alive. And the theory was that they were still alive. They were in a little monkey shaft, a little cubby hole where they had food and tools. So what they did was they dug down, and they were able to find the miners, and then eventually they were able to extricate them. But, it was a marvelous story. It was one of the top stories of 1963 on Associated Press.
Right.
We had it was an international story, a story of international intrigue. We had people from the UK, Germany, Japan, et cetera, that were there watching this unfold. Tiny little patch town outside of Hazleton.
Yeah, the world was watching, huh?
Yeah, thousands of people there. I mean, the Salvation Army, the National Guard, the military, the paparazzi, and the rubberneckers. There was a ton of people. So that was in our backyard. That was one of the most amazing things. But my Sheppton book took off in 2016. That was 9 years ago, and to this day, it's just been a really popular book. So I can't, it opened the doors to the paranormal for me.
Yeah, because we went to, what was it, the Ashland Coal Mine Tunnel.
Yeah. Right.
And I pointed out the book. I was like, hey, I know this author. Your book is still there at the Ashland Coal Mine. And we actually got a tour of the coal mine from a descendant of Black Jack Kehoe from the Molly Maguires.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, this guy, he's a cool guy. I've seen him. I've read his books. I think he'd be on great for our show. So, and also, let me just jump in if I could with the Molly Maguires. They are this nebulous group, this ghost group of alleged Irish Catholic freedom fighters that were waging battle against the coal mine companies. And some historians believe that they didn't really exist, that it was just a construct of the people, just like a Robin Hood, like. So there's some of that. I mean, I don't believe that. I believe that they did exist, and because we know that a bunch of them were killed and Jim Thorpe, hung.
Yes.
Right.
Well, yes, but I think the argument against it was more so that, it was the mine companies controlled the cops, and that they led the cases, and when they were tried, Catholics weren't allowed to be on the jury. Yeah. So, but what I agree with Maxim, the crimes that are said to have been committed by the Molly Maguires certainly happened. People did die on both ends of that, both Molly Maguires and the mine bosses.
Yeah, and listen to this. Excuse me, I think it's coal dust.
Yeah.
So let's just say, theoretically, that maybe there was some coal mine boss who was spreading the word that there was no such thing as the Molly Maguires.
Sure.
This smacks of ufology and Project Mockingbird, and this was the CIA's attempt to infiltrate American journalism and go and command and dominate the stories that were leaked out.
Oh,
and
yeah.
CIA that began in 1947, they were embedded with American journalists, and they watched what stories would. If they were pro-American, they were good, but if they were, anti-American, they would sit on them. And so we see a lot of that. It's censorship. We talk about being a country of freedom of speech and all that, but. And these podcasts are probably the last remaining citadel where we could have a difference of opinion. We could have freedom of speech, within limits. But let freedom ring. Let these podcasts continue, because it's the most wonderful thing, I think, that we have going. And there's a groundswell, especially after COVID. So again, thank you for what you guys do. This is important stuff. So
thank you.
Appreciate that.
So, like the book that really drew me into your writing was actually Coal Region Hoodoo, because you talk about things like the Night of the Living Dead, the Blob, the Philadelphia Experiment, Centralia, Penhurst. I mean, a lot of these places we've gone to or checked out.
Yeah.
Well, coal region's coal because, when you think of central Pennsylvania, if you're from that, you know what coal region means. You know what I mean? It's like a...
Yeah.
And what's more coal region than the story of Centralia?
Right.
Sure that.
Yeah.
A town that's burning as we speak. So...
a town that the Catholic priest, the Irish Catholic priest, who was beat up by the Molly Maguire group, put a curse on Centralia. He said, at the end of the day, the only thing left standing will be St. Ignatius Church. So that's because Molly's beat him up. So it's a great story. Coal Region Hoodoo, I wrote that because I was just sort of pissed off that most of the paranormal books about Pennsylvania took place in Gettysburg or Lancaster. Gettysburg, Ghost, and Lancaster hex signs. And I said, wait a second, the coal region has a lot more stories to tell, a lot more interesting stories. And I conjured up the word hoodoo. Of course, usurping it from Louisiana, but that's
correct.
Okay.
Right.
But hoodoo meaning either a blessing or a curse. And in the case of like the Sheppton miners, they were rescued, and what a wonderful blessing. And then they had the curse put on them because they were blamed for cannibalizing their mates. So, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of good, a little bit of not so good. So that's the hoodoo. And that's, the people in Poland, the mining companies would go over to Poland and invite these young guys to come over to the Pennsylvania mines to work in the mines and have a job. They told them that the streets of America were paved in gold. And when they got here, they became literally indentured servants.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Like a horrible, that's our backstory, but that's not so good. But the good thing is that we fueled the Industrial Revolution, so you can't look at this stuff just through one lens,
right?
No,
sure.
A multi-prism, and certainly with our area in northeastern Pennsylvania, we just have such a wonderful legacy. And for as dirty and filthy as anthracite coal might have been, they had a pitch person, Phoebe Snow, that would ride in her white gown on the trains that were using the anthracite coal, and she was just fresh as a daisy and clean as the day was long. So that was Phoebe Snow. None of it was true, but well, so what?
And we were just this weekend. We were riding through a lot of the coal region, and we saw the buildings from the heydays of the coal region. The architecture in some of these places is just amazing. So in the late 1800s, there was a lot of money in these towns that are kind of crumbling nowadays.
Well, it's funny too to see the really big structures where it was the wealthy mine owners and whatnot, and then you see the structures of the houses that are all smushed together on a street. They have shared walls between all of them. There's 6 of them in a block, and you see that all through the towns in the coal region.
Yeah, when one miner's house burns down, it takes out a dozen.
Yeah.
Well,
like in Minersville. Minersville is a good example of that.
Oh, yeah.
those houses that are all together. But you're right. You look at the architecture in Jim Thorpe or Pottsville. I mean, there's some mansions there.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Oh yeah, we were just on Mahontango Street, and the houses that we're driving by, we're like, these are phenomenal.
They're so big,
massive.
And I mean, obviously, we went there to see some particular homes, but it's just amazing to see what was built during the coal region's heyday.
It really is, and to think that they've been there for that long too. All those structures.
Yeah, it's good to talk about this. You know, I love driving through the coal region. I mean, I go over to Shenandoah and those places. All the time, but it's just really kind of neat. I mean, you know, if I had a camera, I'd make some movies over there. I mean, Shenandoah is a perfect place, and so Shamokin. So, you know.
Yeah, it's beautiful over there.
So, I
from your book, I'm sorry, can I ask real quick? I just want to know, from your book, The Coal Region Hoodoo, I have not read that, I apologize. What are some of your can you just tell me like one or two of your favorite stories from that, or just mention one or two of your favorite stories from that?
Yeah, certainly. First of all, Coal Region Hoodoo is Pennsylvania-centric, and it's northeastern Pennsylvania-centric as well as western Pennsylvania. The three of the most infamous cult movies are Night of the Living Dead, The Blob, and Philadelphia Experiment. That's our stuff. We wrote the book, and it still resonates today. And I challenge anybody to watch the first 10, 15 minutes of Night of the Living Dead and tell me it's not classic in the way they pulled it off. You know, the music, the mood, the car, the black and white.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
They have a formula that just doesn't quit. So those motion pictures. And then I talked about Richard Sharp Shaver, who was born in Berwick, Pennsylvania. And Shaver, back in the 40s, claimed that he was abducted by evil robots. He was held captive underneath in subterranean caves.
By evil robots?
Evil robots.
Wow.
Darrows. He called them Darrows. However, here's the rub. A lot of people believed him. And they were Shaver mystery clubs, and people would get together and listen to the stories on the radio.
Oh, wow.
And he heard voices. You know, he was schizophrenic.
Oh.
A lot of other people said, I too hear voices, and it has to be the Darrows. The Darrows from underground are torturing me. So Richard Sharp Shaver from Berwick, Pennsylvania, my hometown, you know, he was investigated by the FBI for conjuring the UFO hysteria of 1947.
Oh my gosh.
Oh wow.
A Berwick guy. So, you know, I'm saying, leave him alone.
Pennsylvania, the Keystone State. Like
So Richard Sharp Shaver was another one of them, and then certainly Centralia and Sheppton.
Oh yeah.
And one other thing, in Coal Region Hoodoo, I wanted to do things. I wanted to bring the spiritual and the paranormal a little bit closer to the scientific. So in Coal Region Hoodoo, I have a chapter on St. Teresa of Avila. She was the 17th century Spanish mystic that believed that through prayer and meditation, we could reach states of rapture and ecstasy and what she called the flight of the soul. And that's actually an out-of-body experience that Sheppton and Throne, the guys that were entombed in Sheppton, were able to rise out of that pit and look down and see the rescue team. And they did it twice. And so this is pretty amazing, some of the things that happened there. And again, they are all paranormal or supernatural. They lie outside of the realm of science.
Cup of Code! Today's episode is brought to you by Cup O Code. Need a website or marketing solution that works as hard as you do? At Cup of Code, they don't just build websites. They create digital solutions that grow your business. From expert web design to targeted marketing, including Facebook, Instagram, Google Ads, and billboards, they've got you covered. Dream, design, develop. Visit cupofcode.com and take your business to the next level.
So you're saying those two trapped men, they were able to have an out-of-body experience and come up and see their rescuers?
Yeah, Fallon did it twice.
Wow.
Once, but as they did it, they were able to see each other and talk to each other as they were up there looking down.
So it was a shared experience too.
It was a shared experience, and also they were interviewed and interrogated by psychologists and by psychiatrists.
Yeah.
They were by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who wrote On Death and Dying, one of the groundbreaking works of the 20th century.
Yeah.
And she investigated near-death experiences and how people, and also how people dealt with loss. You lose a loved one, and we have anger and then negotiation. God, if you bring him back, I'll be good. And then finally, there's acceptance for some of us. But she wrote about this, and she interviewed Davy Fallon, and she believed that what they experienced was life after death, and she was referring specifically to Pope John the 23rd.
Correct.
Right.
And this is the crazy thing. Pope John the 23rd, the miners saw him in the mine for those 2 weeks. He stood in the corner. He didn't say anything. He just gave him the sign that everything was going to be okay. He gave him like a sign of peace. And Pope John the 23rd, here's the thing. He died in June of 63. Sheppton took place in August of 63. It was a case of life after death. And also, in all three of the miracles attributed to Pope John the 23rd, all three of them happened after he had died. So, you draw your own conclusions. I've spoken with
That's interesting.
I've spoken with Catholic priests and nuns and brothers, and they all said the same thing, that when Pope John the 23rd died, he went
23. Sorry.
23, they said. He went to heaven and came down, and he got that power. And it wasn't him doing the miracles, but it was God working through him. So this is the official explanation that I've gotten from, Roman Catholic theologians.
I collect a lot of weird things, and because of the Sheppton Mine Disaster, one of the things I collect is Pope John the 23rd items that came out during the time that he existed. So I have little metal boxes and trinkets
Of course you do.
that these miners could have possibly have owned. Because to me, that seemed... These are guys, are Catholics.
I get it.
And they revered this guy. Do you know, Maxim, if they knew that he was already dead at when they were seeing him?
They did, but what happened was Fallon was a devout Catholic.
Okay, so Fallon knew.
Fallon knew. Throne wasn't, but Fallon was 58 years old. Throne was 28. Throne was very immature and just he got into the histrionics. I mean, he was just a hysterical lad, and it was the older Fallon that kept him grounded and really pretty much saved him from going crazy in those 2 weeks. So what happened, though, when they were rescued, there were 2 helicopters. They took Throne to the Hazleton General Hospital first, and then Fallon. And when they were there, the Hazleton General had a picture of Pope John the 23rd, because, there were a lot of Catholics, there were a lot of Italian, and Polish and that.
Sure.
And Throne, the agnostic, goes, Davy, there's the guy, there's the fellow that we saw down there in the mine. And he was pointing to the picture of Pope John the 23rd. Throne didn't know pretty much what the Pope looked like. I mean, Fallon did, but Throne didn't.
Sure.
So this is pretty interesting what happened. There's something else to that I think is interesting, that it's almost like the 6 degrees of separation, that everything is connected to something else. Pope Francis, who just died, canonized Pope John the 23rd in 2014. But here's the thing: instead of having just one person canonized, he had a dual canonization. So Pope John the 23rd was the one. The other one was Pope John Paul II. Here's the rub, as Shakespeare would say. Pope John Paul II was an exorcist. He put together a school of exorcism. He invited priests from like 132 countries to come to learn this medieval ritual of exorcism, because Pope John the 23rd believed that evil exists and the devil exists, and we have to confront it. Think about this too, because I don't know how your listeners feel about this. A lot of people feel that images of the devil or those things are evil, or something that the church used to keep people in life. If you don't go to church, the devil's going to get you.
Right.
If you
for sure.
do this, you're gonna suffer. And Pope John Paul II said, no, evil does exist, but the devil wants us to think that he or she does not exist. So, you make your call. It's your life. I know a lot of you folks go ghost hunting, and I had an opportunity I was invited out to Butler, Pennsylvania, for the 18th annual Butler Paranormal Conference. I was there, on the bill were the Psychic Vincent sisters. So the Psychic Vincent sisters, they're delightful. They were talking about their experiences, and police would hire them to go and find missing people or to find killers. Wow. So they're there in Butler talking, and this guy raises his hand and said, I'm a ghost hunter. And he didn't belong to an organized group, but he would go out there to these former mental institutions and prisons and go looking for spooks. Well, he was sleeping this one night and something attacked him. He believed it was a demonic force. His chest was ripped open and his eye was bulging. And he showed pictures to the Psychic Vincent sisters, and they shared that with all of us. And this guy got really ripped up. They felt that he had an infestation, that an attachment, this demonic spirit attached themselves to him. And they said, you better pray and you get the crucifix out in holy water, because that's the only thing that's going to save you. But it was pretty horrific what he was showing us. The Psychic Vincent sisters, they had some really good stories to tell. So that was back in April 26th of this year. And that was my, I had a chance to talk to him, and the guy was pretty horrified, and he's backed off on the ghost hunting at this point.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah. Now, speaking of ghost hunting, I know that you've actually interviewed Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Yeah.
At one point.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Oh, that was awesome. I know it was. Yeah. And call it what you will. Being at the right place at the right time. I don't know. That's what I think it was. But in the 80s, we had the Schmurl haunting that was up in West Pittston, Pennsylvania.
Yes.
And the Schmurl, Jack and Janet Schmurl, and their, I think, 4 daughters were being haunted by poltergeist in their house there in West Pittston, and all the typical things that you would find in a house of that kind. The smells, the grunting sounds, profanities etched in mirrors, the collie being levitated and flung across the room. Jack Schmurl claimed that he was raped by a female demon, a succubus.
Wow.
And the stories just got worse and worse and worse. So the Catholic Church sent in priests to spend the night there to find out what was going on. Every parish has a priest who is an exorcist. And so they sent them over, the exorcist, to go and cleanse the house. Nothing happened. They brought in Ed and Lorraine Warren. And Ed and Lorraine tried to do something, but they were also ineffective. And at that point, Ed and Lorraine were helping to write a book called The Haunted. And that was written by Jack, I want to say Warren, but Jack Curran, who was with the Sunday Independent. And so in 1988, Ed and Lorraine Warren were embarking on a 15-city book tour, and they were in Jim Thorpe. That was, I believe, their first stop. So I got permission to go and interview them and hang out with them, and I took these awesome photographs of Ed and Lorraine, and I'm looking for my, let me see if I could find this because it's worth showing. Yeah, here's the picture I took in 1988 of Ed and Lorraine. Oh, no.
Yep.
Keep going. Keep going.
There you go. I've seen that picture.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that was my picture, and Tony Spira, who is their nephew, I believe, has taken my picture and put it on his Facebook page or whatever without permission from moi, which is me in French. So I didn't go after Tony, but I haven't heard anything good about Tony, including that, when he shows Annabelle, when you go to visit the museum, he charges extra for Annabelle. But for the viewers out there, Annabelle's going to be in Gettysburg. I believe it's July 22nd and 23rd.
Yeah,
correct. And I've met Tony Spera, and I've met Annabelle. In fact, I have my version of Annabelle behind me.
That's right.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, cool.
As any ghost hunter does. I mean, we all have an Annabelle doll.
That's just a rule, apparently.
It's a rule, Yeah. But, like Lorraine was very against the doll leaving her museum in Connecticut. Like, she believed that it should stay there.
Yeah.
So
she didn't even like to look at it for very long.
So, like, I know the doll Annabelle is all in the news right now, being blamed for the Louisiana prisoners escaping.
The fire
in the plantation.
Yep.
Is all being blamed on her.
Yeah. We'll see if anything happens in Gettysburg, huh?
And people are saying that she's missing, too, but we think
she's not.
That's fake.
Yeah.
She's not missing.
No.
She's definitely having a moment.
It's good to have the discussion. But anyway, Ed and Lorraine were very gracious. They were nice people. And then after Jim Thorpe, I stayed in touch with him, and I would call up Ed and ask him questions about how he waged battle, with these demons. And pretty much he would go and invoke the spirit of Jesus Christ, of Padre Pio, of St. Michael the Archangel, and do battle. He would use the crucifix, the holy water, all of these things. And, just frightening stuff that I think, I talk about the international rule of 90, that with things like this, 30% of the people believe, 30% do not believe, and 30% are on the bias.
Okay.
So we all fall into one of those categories. But I look at the universe in terms of 90 rather than 100. And I just think that 30, 30, 30 tends to work in so many different things. And even with, for example, your podcast, if I may, let's just assume that 30% of the people love it and they tell other people about it. 30% of the people hate it for whatever reason. Maybe professional jealousy, who knows? And then 30% of the people are thinking about going to Boscov's for their
indifferent.
Their spring sale. So, some people are caught up in their own thing, but you're never going to get 100%. So
So when you met Ed and Lorraine and Jim Thorpe, was it by any chance at the Emporium of Curious Goods, or?
Yeah, it was. And,
that place is cool.
Yeah, and there was a picture there. If I,
I knew that the owner there was a friend of Ed and Lorraine Warren. So when I took them out to Jim Thorpe, I was like, we got to go to this store, not only because they have a ghost cat, but because of like the massive connection to Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Yeah.
And let me see if I cannot do. Okay, boy, why?
By the way, there you go.
Can you see it?
There. Yep.
Barrett Ravenhurst. He's young. Okay, a young Barrett. So that was back in 1988. So, he was in there. But I kept in touch with them. I would call them. They were very gracious. They were nice. I think they liked me and respected me. And I can't say anything negative about them. But again, some people believe in what they did. Some people don't. And but I do. And it's just I think a lot of this is a matter of faith. What do you believe? And
I know in the paranormal community, there's those that are very strong in their opinions, whether they're pro or against. So, and I try to be open, and I try to debunk. So, I have equally my own opinions. Now, I know that after like the Coal Region Hoodoo, you put out a book called, what was it, Flying Saucer Esoteric?
And that was the, that's kind of interesting because that was my version of microdosing, but instead of going but what I did was this, I spent years working on Coal Region Hoodoo. And I mean, it's a beautiful book. It's a wonderful book. It's one of my best books. It's a great seller. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to have 2 books published in the same year. And that was all ego-driven. That was nothing more than ego-driven. And what I did,
Know thyself.
I challenged myself to finish a book in 30 days. And I was working on this book morning, noon, and night. I was consumed with flying saucers and UFOs and UAPs. I read, I talked to people, I listened to podcasts, I did every single thing that I could. My wife didn't see me. Pretty much. But my plan was this, that at the end of 100 days, I was giving myself 100 days. At the end of 100 days, if I was burning out or started to burn out, I would just stop the project. I finished the book in 97 days. And if you look at why I'm so...
Oh, yeah, we got a picture.
Yeah, we have a picture. We'll post the picture on.
So if you could see underneath the night there, you could see in Roman numerals
XCVII.
Yeah, and that is 97. So it took me 97 days to write that book.
Wow.
Nice little...
but lots of
Easter
green
egg.
tea and valerian root and herbal things. And
Nice.
but I did it, and I wouldn't advise anybody else to do it. But it was just it was a goal I wanted to do. It was ego driven, but it worked out. So
That's awesome.
Face
Monster!
This episode of Slice of the Paranormal is sponsored in part by Face Monster, creating apparel, accessories, and artwork influenced by 80s horror, 90s pop culture, punk music, and skateboarding since 2012.
Whether you have a craving for pizza or a disgust for politicians, Face Monster has unapologetic apparel that appeals to almost everyone. Physically located on the second floor of the Sunbury Station in Sunbury, Pennsylvania.
Or you can find Face Monster on Instagram at Face Monster. That's Face Monster with a 0 instead of an O. But Face Monster wants you to know that even though there's a 0 in their name, you're still number 1 for following them.
I did bring a model of the Kecksburg UFO that landed in Pennsylvania. So does the Kecksburg incident appear in your Flying Saucer Esoteric?
Yeah, it does, but it also appears in Coal Region Hoodoo. There's a chapter on Kecksburg, only because it belongs there. Again, this book is Pennsylvania-centric.
Yeah.
And even though flying saucers are universal, Pennsylvania has their Chestnut Ridge, where we have this plethora of Bigfoot and UFO sightings, Bigfoot and orb sightings, as well as Kecksburg, that was December of 1965, where something flew over Canada and something like 5, 6, 7 states, and it seemed to be controlled. And it put down outside of Kecksburg, and then immediately the Army came in there with their trucks, and they carted something out. That a lot of us believe was an acorn-shaped flying saucer.
That's what it looks like. It looks like a bronze upside down acorn.
Yeah, and I have on the bottom of mine grates, that's where the propulsion was.
Yeah, and we had a chance to go out there to the Kecksburg festival and hang out with Stan Gordon and Kevin Paul and some of the other researchers that were out there, and to see the mock-up that was made for, I think it was Unexplained Mysteries. Roberts.
It was Unsolved Mysteries that did that. Made the mock-up.
Did the mock-up. It's kind of cool. So everybody goes there. And it was nice to be there and just to get caught up in that frenzy and, to talk to people and meet people. So, some of them had heard of me because of the Sheppton book, and that was kind of neat. But Kecksburg, there's all these theories. And, after the government carted the craft out, whatever it was, some of the folks used the Freedom of Information Act to find out what it was, and a lot of the information was either redacted or missing. And they admitted that, but it was missing. And I believe that Kecksburg is a lot more valid, more genuine than is Roswell.
Yes, I would agree.
And why would you say that, Steve?
Because there's when the craft was actually, not only was a craft found, like Roswell. But when you deal with Kecksburg, you have witnesses watching the craft come down over multiple states. And then, like you said, it was under control. Like there was a point where it slowed down and changed direction. Wow. So if it was a falling satellite, which is one of the ideas, is that it was a Russian satellite that came down, or that it was a meteorite, it would not change directions. Right. It's a straight line. The fact that it changed directions and people witness that adds credence to me. And then the second part is you have so many witnesses that were on the ground, like seeing different aspects of what was going on. Like there's 2 people I know of that saw the object being carted away under a tarpon. Oh. Yeah. You know, on a flatbed truck. Mm-hmm. And like it looked like if it had been a meteorite and say it punches into the ground, this object here, it would have created a larger impact zone. And my theory is it looks like it was slowing its descent, and that's what creates more of a gentle impact site in this area. I have the GPS coordinates down in my book so when we go out, we're going to check out this crash site if we can. And also we'll go to the Kecksburg UFO Museum. Sure. And see the statue. But I want to see the impact zone.
You said this is over like below Pittsburgh, right?
It's west of Pittsburgh a little bit?
East of Pittsburgh.
East of Pittsburgh, that's right.
Yeah.
East, okay.
Yeah. And so we had witnesses that came forward and gave their testimony, as opposed to Roswell, where it took 33 years for Charles Berlitz and William Moore to write their book, the Roswell incident, and it was, I think, 1978 when Stanton Friedman interviewed Jesse Marcel. So that information was 30 some years later. Right. Kecksburg was here and now. So, I just think that it was, more relevant, more fresh. And the theories were plentiful. Either one of our satellites, maybe a Venus probe from the Soviets.
Yes.
Maybe a flying saucer. And then the latest thing is some people are talking about the bell, the Glock bell, the Nazi time travel device that went from the 1930s to 1960. So with the Nazi bell, this sort of brings Kecksburg into the same realm of mythology as is Roswell. Up until then, I think that Kecksburg really smacked of something scientific and valid. But we're getting some theories there that are a possible stretch. But again, we don't know. But the Nazi bell is a very popular theme, and why not? Why not look at that? But anyway, I'm glad that Nazi bell landed in Pennsylvania. Because nothing to talk about.
Yeah, and you also have a book. I also brought a Bigfoot doing a yoga pose, I think, because you wrote a book called The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, and that's your last book that got released, correct?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's been making some noise and getting me invited to a ton of expos. I'm going to be down at Gwen Purcell's expo in Selinsgrove in, I think is that August.
Oh, yeah.
August.
They're doing it at the mall, right?
They're moving it from Elysburg to the mall. So this should be new and improved. I mean, everything's going to be inside the mall. And we're talking about, I think, hundreds of vendors and people selling.
It's a big event. We'll be there.
Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so we'll stop in and say hi.
Yeah, please do. I have my booth there, and I'll be showing my Lost Tribes of Bigfoot book. And
nice.
That'll be interesting. But yeah, it's exciting. And the book came out last year, and it's doing quite well. And it's getting me some recognition as being a person who's interested in Bigfoot, or a person who has something to say about the whole Bigfoot phenomenon, whatever that is.
Well, the reason I bring it up is because Christy is going to be going to the Bigfoot camping adventure with Eric Altman.
Yep.
And she just started watching a TV show on Peacock. I think it's called Teacup.
Yes.
And she was saying to us about how, there's this belief that, UFOs are interdimensional beings.
Yeah, that they don't really need a corporeal body. So what they would do is just kind of inhabit humans' bodies, and that's the whole idea of visitors. So basically, they were being possessed by the aliens.
Yeah, possessed, kind of.
Yeah. So, and then I that brought me to think, well, what if demon possessions all a long time were actually alien possessions?
Which made me
but with
think
our human brain would describe it religious, because that's what we knew.
If you look up Maxim's book on the Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, one of the things that the description says is interdimensional theories and mass hallucinations. So do you, in your book, do you touch on the subject of people believing that maybe Bigfoots are interdimensional beings?
What I do is this. I start with the premise. If it's not flesh and blood, then what is it? And, a lot of these people that go out there looking for Sasquatch, they have what I would call certain elements of high strangeness. They have eyewitnesses. They have the smells, the horrible fecal matter smells, the wet dog smell. They have the sounds, the grunts, they have the wood knocks, pebbles, stones that are thrown at them, the wood structures. There's a whole bunch of things. What we don't have is we don't have a carcass, and we don't have DNA to this point.
Right.
And so at this point, we can't appease the scientific community. But my premise is this: if it's not flesh and blood, what is it? And so I look at some of these other theories. I look at Jung's collective unconsciousness, that some of the things that our caveman ancestors saw that got filed into the amygdala, that spoke of danger, that we carry that DNA with us until today. So what we're seeing may be part of that collective unconsciousness.
That's interesting.
The thing about mass hallucinations, that's not far removed. When you take a look at the drone hysteria of 2024, everybody that looked up into the sky saw something. It was like a Rorschach test. We were nobody, the government was not telling us anything. There was a lot of hysteria, and we didn't know what was up there, but a lot of people were concerned. And the other one is the interdimensional theory, and I like that the best of all. And I can't take credit for it because none of this is original. I mean, we piggyback on the work of other people, the theories of other people, and that's pretty much the scientific method. But with the interdimensional theory, there was a guy named Jacques Vallée that talked about interterrestrial travel and interterrestrial beings, and he didn't think it made sense for the space brother to go from planet A all the way to Earth. It would take too long, take too much time, too much energy.
Correct.
Nobody had that expertise, etc. So Vallée talked about the interdimensional theory that maybe these beings, and I believe it could be flying saucers as well as Bigfoot, are shape-shifting in between dimensions, in between parallel boundaries. Now, again, as I'm not totally unique and original, neither was Jacques Vallée, because Einstein and Rosen had a theory called the bridge hole theory, which would later be called the wormhole theory. And he said that if you were to take the space-time continuum and fold it in half, that maybe could punch a hole there, and theoretically the space brother or perhaps the aliens or the Bigfoot could go from A to B. That makes sense. That makes sense. Again, it's theory, and we need more. We need to put more behind that to figure it out. But that's a theory that I think makes sense. Makes maybe more sense than Stephen Greer's CEA5, where if we do the Kumbaya, we can have flying saucers and the Greys manifest.
Now you said we don't have DNA, but I just want to say, Maxim, I actually went on eBay and I got certified genuine Bigfoot hair.
Nice.
Okay.
So I have genuine
Obviously,
DNA.
for real deal.
And, it says it is genuine, so I have to
The
believe
sheet
it.
says it's genuine.
Well, Steve, you're going to be my best friend because you're sitting on $1 billion right now.
I am, until I get it tested and it gets debunked. So as long as I don't have this tested, I have Bigfoot DNA.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
Just saying. Well, Maxim, I want to say thank you again for having you on.
Yeah.
It has been an utter joy. So one of my questions, final questions for you is, do you have anything coming up that I know you just said about the the Cryptid event at the Susquehanna Valley Mall, but do you have any other events coming up?
Yeah, I'm going to be down in Wyers Cave, Virginia on June 20th and 21st. That's Daniel Benoit's Bigfoot Expo. I'm looking forward to being there. I'll be one of the guest speakers. And then later on this summer, let's see if I could get this right, I'll have Paranormal
Nice.
Apocalypse published. Is this how it ends? And there's a gray that looks like the Grim Reaper.
Yeah.
I love the art.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
cool.
I know, and that's going to make some noise. So I'm really pleased with that. We are working on it. We have the proofreaders, and we're ready to just go and get that, launch that. And I'm hoping that that'll be out in, giving myself 4 months, but hopefully it'll be out before then. But
That's awesome.
And I know
Yeah, it really
that
is.
you just had an article come out in Paranormal Underground.
Yeah.
You had sent that. I saw that on Facebook, and you had another one coming out where you actually quote me, I think.
Yeah, and that'll be in Gwen's Strange Knocks, Gwen Purcell's Strange Knocks magazine. And I don't know why I can't. You could see that, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, good. And there's an article there on what's the state park there in Catawissa and blocking.
State Park in Catawissa?
In Catawissa, all I know about is the Hooded Graves.
No, hang on. I have it right here. Public. Okay.
I've been to the
State
park.
Forest? Weiser State Forest?
Weiser State Forest. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Weiser State Forest. So we talk about Weiser State Forest and some of the connectors there, and one of them, of course, the Hooded Grave. And Stephen, you were kind enough to give me some information about the Hooded Graves. And what's interesting is just recently there was a case, there was a trial in Scranton where the guy that was working in New Hampshire, he was working at the, I think he was from New Hampshire, was working at the Harvard morgue, and he was stealing body parts. He was a modern day body snatcher. So they got the dude, and just amazing, because we talk about body snatching as being something from the past.
Oh yeah, Victorian era.
And that's why exactly. But it happens even today. Anything for money. So so anyway, that was part of my research on the hooded graves, and it's just kind of interesting. But
that's cool.
I thank you for your contributions to that.
Oh, and thank you for reaching out to me. I mean, like you, I study a lot of this. Obviously, I have 3 books full of my investigations, and now, Maxim, you have a page devoted just to you.
Nice.
Because you were on the podcast, so now I will follow your career, and we'll probably have you back. Like, this guy knows a ton of stuff on the
for sure.
Oh, I know. We could probably sit here and talk for another hour or so. Easy.
the Night of the Living Dead. I definitely want this guy back.
Oh, yeah, because we'll be doing on the Blob we talked
And the Blob. We want to go to Blob Fest.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, there's opportunities down the road, but
I'll do anything for that slice of pizza. So
all right.
I'm a gun for hire.
I know.
next time we'll invite you to the pizza part. Yeah,
we'll invite you to the pizza part next time, and we always provide free pizza for our guests.
That's right.
So thank you once again, Maxim.
Do you care if we talk about pizza while you're on here with us?
Not at all.
So I got one more question for him anyway. Then.
Oh, okay, great.
So this time we went to a pretty cool pizza place. We've been searching for this pizza place since we started doing these podcasts. It was called Paranormal Pizza, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, I got some information on it.
What you got? Go for it.
It's a beloved Bethlehem pizza store that suffered fire damage in 2022, and it's a family-run business, and it's co-owned by Mark Kubishevsky, I think.
Kubishevsky?
And his brother. Now, we met, I think it was
Joey was the guy I met.
You met Joey. That's the other brother. So they're identical twin brothers.
Oh, nice. That's
that
cool.
Run it. And their sister was the one that was checking us out.
Right.
So they started this pizza place because he posted an image of his vegan pizzas. And it hit really big on Instagram.
All 100% plant-based.
And it's all 100% plant-based. There's literally no cheese. There's no meat on this. And
I mean, there is meat, but it was not real meat.
I'm a carnivore. So I didn't know this until after I had taken 2 bites like Christy. And they are going to open up a new shop soon.
So this was a pop-up because their original shop had burned down.
So we saw them at what? Jay's Local?
It's called Jay's Local in Allentown. And they let them in there Friday nights from 5 to 9, and then Sundays from noon to 6. So that's the only times you can catch them right now until the brick and mortar comes. Which he said it's got cool ideas. And he said when it's a brick and mortar, it's kind of like generic menu right now, but he said when it's a brick and mortar, all his ingredients and toppings and stuff is all X-Files themed names. So I'm excited about that.
They don't have a deep fryer at Jay's Local. So it bars them from like the wings and the French fries. But like you said, X-Files, I asked him, I was like, why are you called the Paranormal Pizza? And I thought Ghost. And he's like, no, it's the X-Files. I mean, the names that I wrote down are the Molder, the Lone Gunman.
Oh, these are pizzas?
These are pizzas. And the Alien Bounty Hunter.
Nice.
Are some of the names. So if you watch X-Files, you might be able to tag them to the episodes.
Oh, for sure.
That they're named after. But they were great for us. We gave them, stickers and flyers?
We did. They were awesome. From the moment we walked in, they were super cool, and you could tell they love what they're doing. It's funny because I ordered the pizza, and I was like, can I get a half pepperoni, half cheese pizza? And he's like, yep, sure thing. And then like 10 seconds later, he goes, you know it's 100% plant-based, right? And I was like, oh, like, are you telling me or asking me? Like, I'm okay with that. Is there an option? Can I get it right? He's like, nope, this is what we do. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So I didn't tell you guys that.
No.
I decided not to mention that for a little bit and see how far we got. And it looked great, right? The pizza looked incredible.
The pepperoni or whatever it was had a crisp on the edge. And Christy and I, we both are always looking for that
pepperoni.
crisp.
Sure.
So I'm going to go scores here real quick. Steven, this is unprecedented. His first 5 out of 5. 5 out of 5.
I was going to give it
This is a plant-based pizza, Steven.
Yeah, I know. I was going to give it a 4.75 when I thought it was meat. But when I realized that the pepperoni was not really meat and the cheese, which is amazing, was not really cheese.
You guys loved the cheese.
And I thought if I was going to give it 4.75 as a meat and cheese pizza, it deserves more.
I love it.
So I had to give it a 5.0.
First one ever.
You said if I didn't know if it was plant-based, I wouldn't have guessed. Everything was perfect. A fake cheese was good cheese. The fake pepperoni was great. I'm a carnivore, and I was highly impressed.
See?
Yeah.
Right there.
Boom. Christy, 4.5 out of 5. Monster scores! Monster scores. 4.5 out of 5. I did not know that it was plant-based until 2 bites in. I think I would prefer the pepperoni to most regular pepperoni. So you liked it better than most pepperoni we tried.
Right, because it wasn't greasy. That was the big thing.
No grease.
There's no grease to it.
It was overpowering, but had a subtle smoky flavor, you said.
It was not overpowering, and it had a subtle smoky flavor. Yeah,
Cheese,
it was great.
Despite being plant-based, was creamy and also had some pull, you said.
Yeah, in different places, it would be more creamy than others, in other places. So the cheese wasn't like completely consistent, I guess.
Interesting.
And I do like a different kind of cheese sometimes, not just...
You're a sucker for a little creamier cheese.
Right. But I do like the mozzarella as well. I kind of like a blend of the two.
Yeah.
You know? And this one kind of was like that.
Had a little bit of both. Better than 90% of the pizza we try is what you said.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So, wow.
Stand by my story.
Nice. I was not so much a fan of the cheese. I do not like the creamy cheese. I gave it a 3.25 out of 5, which is still a good score. Still a good score for me.
It is a good score.
I really loved the crust and found out afterwards that it was a sourdough crust, what they said. So I like that. He said people are either you like sourdough or you don't like sourdough crust. Cheese was not what I enjoy, creamy and stuck to the roof of my mouth, but the flavors were all on point. Great slice, especially being all plant-based. I also tried a pepperoni, and it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Maxim, have you ever tried all plant-based pizza before?
Not pizza, but my wife and I were vegans for a number of years.
Oh.
And then we had to get out of that because, I mean, it's very restrictive, no dairy, no cheese and all that. So, we couldn't go that route. But we're what's called piso-vegetarians. We don't eat meat, we eat fish. And so that's second best,
That's awesome, yeah. So my other question is, I got to ask this. We ask this for all of our guests. What's your go-to pizza topping?
Oh, mushrooms.
Oh, nice. Fantastic.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm a mushroom guy myself.
And our pizza place is Tuesday's Pizza in Berwick, Pennsylvania.
Tuesdays.
And it T-U-Z-I-S.
Oh.
It's best when it's greasy.
Oh, really?
It's best when it's greasy.
Tuesdays, yeah.
Okay.
We will try that. Well,
I am putting that on
Steve's making a
Maxim's
Right.
thing.
Yep. Recommended by.
Recommends Tuesday's pizza.
Well, it's fitting because we do ask people everywhere we go, like, can you recommend a good pizza shop to go to? Because
we
we
love
eat
that.
a lot of pizza and we prefer the pizza we eat to be good.
I would prefer that, yeah.
So we, do ask the
Take a
locals.
lot of chances.
So I'm going to have to slither on out of here at this point. But before I do, I had an FYI about the X-Files.
Yeah.
And there was one episode that was banned in certain places.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And it was called Home, H-O-M-E, and it took place in Pennsylvania, and it had some very controversial topic that I don't think we need to discuss, but if anybody's interested in checking that out, it's just, but again, Pennsylvania based, I mean, Pennsylvania is the state of the hoodoo, we got a lot of weird stuff here. So
Yeah.
We do. Again, thanks so much for joining us,
Yeah.
Maxim. We are out as well, so thanks to Cup of Code.
Yep, thanks, Cup of Code.
And
join us next time you crave a slice of the paranormal.
This podcast was produced by Stone State Entertainment.